Welcome to the Special Committee of Arts, Parks, Health, Aging, and the LA River. And I'd like to welcome my colleague, Gil Cedillo.
Morning.
We're going to hear from some very exciting commission appointments this morning. And I would first like to bring up and call up together our El Pueblo appointees, Ms. Pilar Buelna, Joe Bernardo, and Mr. Juan Ramos. Good morning. Please make yourselves comfortable. And I would love it if you all would just say a little bit about yourself and your perspectives upon your appointment to this important commission. And I'd like to start with Ms. Buelna.
Thank you. Good morning. It's an honor for me to be here. My name is Pilar Buelna. I am a resident of Mount Washington. And I grew up in Pico Union, Mexican-born, and grew up in Pico Union and have been coming to La Placita forever. In fact, my daughters used to dance folklorico there, and so it's very dear to my heart. I currently work at the Salvation Army. I oversee their social services programs that range anywhere from homeless shelters to childcare, and so we do both the proactive and approach, and also the programs that our citizens or residents need to continue on a healthy track. I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to learning a whole lot more about El Pueblo. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Mr. Ramos?
My name is Juan Ramos. I'm originally from Boyle Heights and have been living in downtown Los Angeles for the last 3.5 years. Growing up, like Pilar said, my parents would bring us to Placita Ver al Pueblo quite often, and so I understand the importance of Pueblo to the city, and I've had the honor to serve for the last 2 years, and I want to continue to listen, learn, and work hard in helping Pueblo.
Wonderful. Mr. Bernardo?
Good morning. I'm also honored to be here. I was born in LA. I was raised in San Fernando Valley, Northridge. Currently still a resident of Northridge. I've been to El Pueblo and La Placita since I don't know how old I was a kid. I've been there lots of times. I went there during high school during Spanish class. It was a great field trip. I am currently a PhD candidate in history, specializing in the history of Los Angeles and ethnic communities here in Los Angeles, and I think it's a good fit for me to be in kind of the heart and the founding location of Los Angeles. And I'm looking forward to just trying my best to make it the best kind of historical monument that we have in the city.
Wonderful. And Mr. Cedillo, I had the great pleasure of spending a considerable time with these wonderful 3 appointees, so I would like to open it up if you have any questions or comments.
So, all of you are abundantly qualified, and I know you, and I appreciate you offering to serve. Just some modest questions about El Pueblo. How do we get greater utilization? We recently had a staff retreat there, but it just seems one of the most incredible assets that the city has. It's iconic. People think about it. When you think about Los Angeles, it's in almost every movie when they show a movie about the city. And yet, it's underutilized. I don't think we get enough participation. The tourism is solid, but we really, I don't get a sense we're maximizing the utility, particularly on the north side, both the Chinese Museum and then the, what's the other building adjacent? So how do we increase that?
Could I start?
Just jump in.
Thank you very much. Over the last 6 months, and we have developed a strategic plan to address that and other issues. And the strategic plan is the balance of how do we maximize utilization so that people in the city come and take advantage of the entire Pueblo, including the north part. And so the strategic plan balances that, and that includes perhaps putting in more money in terms of cleanliness projects and capital projects to take advantage of those opportunities, and also bringing in marketing partnerships and other partnerships so that people know that this is there. And so it's a balance between spending some money and also bringing in people that have never been here or people that haven't been here in a long time. So we are working on that. The strategic plan that's been developed over the last 6 months works to address that, your question. So part of it is marketing and just getting people over here and improving some of the things that need improvement.
I agree, and just I briefly looked at the strategic plan, and one of the focus is social media. I think people just don't know what we can offer there in terms of the museums and the cultural aspects of it. I think sometimes people get confused that it's strictly, El Pueblo, that it's Mexican, and I think that we've not done a good job probably in advertising the other aspects of culture that are in that facility.
And I think, in the strategic plan, it outlines partnerships at LAUSD to educate our youth that this is the city. I mean, this is the founding of the city, and it's important that, that it's taught in schools, that our youth know that this is the founding city and not just kind of a Mexican tourist attraction.
Right, so for example, we have the Italian Hall.
Mhm.
We have the incredible Siqueiros, America Tropical. We have the Chinese Museum. How do we enhance awareness and visitation? And then in addition to that, so we have nice tacos, taquitos, my wife loved them at the corner. We have the Golondrina and the Camacho's restaurant in the middle. But there's not a high-end experience. There's not a John Sedler with a nice, Rivera's would have been wholly appropriately placed up there at the northern part. I don't think we maximize the experience for the museum that's there. So how do we step that up?
I think reaching out to partnerships. Again, I don't just coming in now. I don't think that people know enough about us, and so reaching out to those partners. Certainly LAUSD is one, because I know my girls go to the Chinese museum every year. But I think right now with their cuts, there's no buses, and so I think increasing resources for the schools to come, and then the kids will go back and tell their parents and start, from bottom up, and looking to the business people to bring them in, maybe have open houses where they can come and really experience firsthand, and where we could, as a board, invite them and really do an event to, again, invite prominent business people that might be able to come in and invest and partner with us to increase and make it that experience, and up it up more.
And I think also to continue to support the infrastructure projects around it. For example, revitalization of Union Station would provide the infrastructure needed to bring people to El Pueblo. And I was talking about with Councilmember O'Farrell supporting the Cat Park over the 101, so the freeway is not cut off from the Civic Center, or El Pueblo is not cut off from the Civic Center by the freeway. So continuing to support capital projects such as that.
Very good. And I'd like to interject and take this moment to welcome two additional distinguished colleagues to this panel, Councilmember Curran Price and Councilmember Tom LaBonge. Thank you. And gentlemen, we're on items 1, 2, and 3, which is the appointment of the El Pueblo commissioners. Questions? Mr. Cedillo? No?
Mr. Chair, did you notice how I came in?
Everyone always notices how you come.
Well, I came in backwards. That's how you come in late to a meeting. If I just give you a tip, being a new man right around here, that's all right. No. Commissioners, this is great. I got a smile out of Sylvia here in the front desk. Nick Patsoris is the first person I ever heard speak about a cat park on the freeway. And there is no connection. I've been here 38 years. And Avak, how many years you been here, Avak? 30-some? Of those years, how many years, and there's 365 days a year, how many years have you walked from City Hall to El Pueblo? Not as many as you would like, because I'm trying to help him, okay? Because as Mr. Cedillo said, the attraction, the walk, the cap over the park is real clean. Mr. Espinoza, the new work in Paris in the left bank, there's little artisans. Should there be artisans across the bridge that connects that? Should we try to really take charge of the top deck of the LA Mall? They're going to rent the mall out, but put art, connect the El Pueblo to in the history. I had a secretary, Terry Valdez, who I admired years ago. I worked for the mayor, and she said she wanted to go for margaritas, and I said, well, I hope you're going over to El Pueblo. And she said, no, they're $7.50. I don't know what margaritas cost now. She went some other place where they were like $3.50. There shouldn't be tourist prices there. There should be people prices. I'm proud to represent Farmers Market. Farmers Market is 118 stalls. Of the 112, they're small shopkeepers. They sell produce. They sell meat, sausage, everything else. Their business comes basically from Baldwin Hills to Mulholland, from Beverly Hills to Silver Lake, the local trade, which you have to have. The El Pueblo's got to attract the people who could say, hey, let's go downtown and let's go to El Pueblo for something, have that experience, have parking, accessibility, connect with Art Leahy, who's a Franklin High graduate, the head of the MTA. I'm looking at Mr. Espinoza. Have a dialogue, because Union Station now is owned by MTA, and they're planning things. This connectivity, the Civic Center, our largest civic center outside our nation capitals is the Los Angeles Civic Center, connecting that. And I'm going to put another motion in, I think we did Friday, to get duck tours going here in Los Angeles, where they have it the Charles River in Boston, where they take an amphibious vehicle from a historic spot to I call St. Charles, but it's the Charles River. And the same, we should have a duck tour from there. The buses that come, they come and sometimes they're disappointed because they don't see something that they want to see. And we want to make sure. The Pico House, tremendous place. There's a tremendous exhibit right now of photographers that are wonderful. And on Sanchez Alley, you got to get Yang Chow. Get Yang Chow. Get a few more restaurants in there. The Chinese American Museum is such a tremendous asset. Connecting all of this is truly wonderful. On Saturday, they had a feast. They had a walk from El Pasita to the church, to the cathedral. And I got down there, perfect timing. I parked my car right in City Hall, and I walked with the Archbishop up to the cathedral. They asked me to go to Mass, but I didn't have time. I did go the next day, okay? I just want to let you know. I had to confess there, Madam City Attorney, because I had to run to another schedule. But there was a connectivity between that. And Mr. Cidi had mentioned the murals, the Italian Hall. I tell the Italians on Columbus Day, go to El Pueblo and walk to the county plaque. And if it's 10 people who walk this year, there'll be 20 next year. This walk that they had for St. Mary's on Saturday had a whole bunch of people who were not usually connected. So it's all there if we do it right, and the energy that you have is really what makes it move. And just lay it out and welcome it, keep it clean. We have to give you help on the park to the east, because it is a challenge when you have people come and there's people who need help and services that are right there greeting it. I do want to see a bike rental facility there, because people will take the train in, Metrolink runs people in, and you rent a bike. And you go to the middle of Paris, you can rent a bike and ride around town. You go to the middle of Berlin, you ride a bike all over the place. Mexico City, all these places, so there's a connectivity there. And also, Mr. Espinoza in the background, I think on weekends, that's out of affection, because I call him Michael, but his brother's Michael, right? Is that right? Okay, so I got that right. But Chris. I just took 3 tourists from Spain off of Main Street, because the King of Spain made Los Angeles, so if you're a Spaniard, I stop everything, get them in City Hall. They go up to the observation deck. I want you to think, and Mr. Zedillo, I think we can work together on this because you're such a leader on this. Let's see if we could get docents. Let's work with general services, maybe between 10 and 4 on a Saturday and Sunday, because there are people walking around this town with a little map trying to find something. They go by the Grand City Hall of Los Angeles. This is the only observation deck that's open air, fresh. Has anyone not been to the top of this building in this room? So we're going to have to make sure you go before you leave, because you'll be impressed.
Before we vote.
That will be a thing to do. So there's a lot that we can do, but I'm encouraged, and my door is always open. I like to be the second or third, and clean restrooms is very good. All that is so helpful. So this is exciting for the Mayor, and Mr. Garcetti is a great historian, too. You know, when you mentioned diversity, 26 of the original 44 settlers were of African descent. So connecting everybody's got a home there in some way is it. But when I say home, too, have a Highland Park Day down there. Have a Boyle Heights Day down there. Have a day. They used to have in Griffith Park in the 40s and 50s Iowa Day. Anyone from Iowa went to a picnic, you know. The other day when I spoke at the Mongolian Day, I told them a story about Iowa. And they loved it because they related, because all the Mongolians now come once a year to Griffith Park to the merry-go-round and have a celebration. You could do the same thing at the birthplace where you salute certain communities. So I'm excited. I just wanted to lead all that. Michael, I want you to write everything down and put a memo out to your commissioners once they're approved.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Price.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the comments of my colleague. I think, you know, when we marry art and culture and history and communities, it really becomes a tool for economic development. And I'm excited with your enthusiasm, your commitment, and know that we need to really be expanding our envelope of appreciation of historical areas. We know that on Central Avenue, for example, a ripe location for music, for entertainment. Folks should be able to leave Staples and hop on a dash bus and come down Central Avenue, enjoy some empanadas and some soul food, hear some jazz, or Little Tokyo, or Alvera Street, or Lamert Park. So I think it really is a challenge. It's going to be an opportunity for us to figure out how we connect the dots, how we make sure we have programs and projects that are allied and non-competing and supportive of the things we all want to see happen. So again, thank you for your commitment and welcome aboard.
Thank you. And Mr. Labange, can we please have Okie Day at
You can
El
have an
Pueblo?
Okie Day.
Okay.
Okie for the first
Thank
time here.
Thank you.
Did you know that the LAPD went to the California-Arizona border and told the Okies they got to go home?
I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah, they
We've
did.
been told a lot of things over the years.
I know.
All right, thank you. Fellow committee members, shall we move this forward to the
Yeah.
full city council? So moved. Thank you so much, and thanks for stepping up to volunteer to serve.
Good job.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Next, I'd like to bring up Dr. Marie Edelman and Mr. Richard Montoya, Cultural Affairs.
Hi.
And Dr. Edelman, I know that this is a new appointment for you, and Mr. Montoya, I know that you're continuing on to serve. So thank you both so much. And Ms. Edelman, would you please go first?
About my background.
And yeah, anything that you'd like to let us know.
Well, my first profession was clinical psychology. I have a PhD in clinical psychology, and I have served on the clinical faculty at the UCLA Medical School for 30 years. But I branched out into music, played the cello and the piano, and taught and designed some music programs in collaboration with UCLA, USC music schools, worked with Colburn School as well. And most recently, I made 2 documentaries, one about my husband, which you know about, and Ed Edelman. Yeah. And I have obviously quite an interest in music and cultural affairs, the arts. So I'm very honored to be appointed to this, be considered for this committee.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Montoya.
Councilmember, I could use a clinical psychologist about now.
Couldn't we all?
Thank you. Feel better just sitting here. I'm primarily a playwright, and my works tend to focus on the city of Los Angeles. And I feel, as an artist, a working artist on the commission, that and many times I feel like I'm exporting our work out to the world. Whether we be performing a play at Yale Repertory Theater, or Miami, or Seattle, or New York, I've always think of it as an extension of the city, not as an official representative, or in that capacity, but in terms of our life, our culture, and our art going outward. I live in Angelino Heights, and whether I'm walking to Dodger Stadium or going to Lamert Park with Roger Guinevere Smith, a dear actor friend of godfather to my son, or Resurrection Church on Friday with Gil Cedillo. This is our city, and this is our beautiful city. It's thriving, it's bursting, it's how can we improve the lives through arts and culture of every Angelino. That's what makes it so fun. So I sit there as an artist and I listen. It's a dynamic place. The general manager is a dynamic person, Olga Garay. She brought so much with her. See, the underboss is here this morning of the DCA, and that's just indicative of the dynamic place that it is, and what is our function as commissioners. It took me a couple years to understand exactly what that is, and the things that seem mundane actually become monumental, and so it's a great pleasure to serve and to be a working artist in the city.
Wonderful. Thank you. And colleagues, I had the great pleasure again of sitting down with these two individuals and had a lot of questions answered and concerns. And I'm so impressed with each of you, and I thank you, Mr. Montoya, for continuing to serve. I think you provide such an important bridge to the existing and new commission, and I thank you for your years of service already, and Ms. Edelman for stepping up to the plate in the way that you are. So with that being said, colleagues, Mr. Price?
I just wanted to say to both of you, thank you, Richard, for your continued support in all things Los Angeles, which is so important. And Ms. Edelman, your wonderful husband, who I still owe some tennis courts at Pan Pacific. I just couldn't figure a spot to put him in, but all the leadership is grounded in cultural in the county, and Ed Edelman with his shoes that he did at his thoughts. So this was a great opportunity to have. And your remarks, Richard, about Olga Garay, a tremendous general manager who takes chances, tries to make sure the diversity rules in our art in every which way that we can, and helping to expand. I know we work with Cultural Affairs on our Sister City program for getting local artists out or foreign artists from our sister cities in. So it's just very exciting. So thank you both very much.
So thank both of you. Obviously, I share a love for your husband like the rest of the world. I'm so enamored with him and so proud of the work we did on the homeless. Just incredible. Just so flattered to have spent that time with him. Help us figure out how we can make this city that invites the world, and yet we seem modest or not robust in terms of promptly taking the talent, the artistic talent, and then creating space for it. What are some thoughts that we could, how could the city do more and take advantage of both the richness that exists, the financial richness that exists, and marry that with all the artists that come throughout the world that come to the city?
You know, when I first sat down with the previous Mayor Villaraigosa, and I have to say I'm so excited to be here for the next couple of years with our new mayor, who is a real lightning rod and makes me very proud of our city. We talked about just that, Councilmember Cedillo, and I think one thing that the nonprofit arts we need to bridge or continue to try to bridge with our big brother and sister in Hollywood. So Olga and I went over to NBC4 and said, we need commercials to tout and blow our horn a little bit. We need to use the media to show the city and tourists and websites just how dynamic and wonderful a place is. And one thing that we thought of was a series of kind of like an ad campaign, in the way that the state of California toots its own horn. I think that the more that we can tear down, you know, we're just small nonprofit theaters and they're Hollywood over there. No, we actually need to find a way where find a more symbiotic relationship with the Hollywood media. I think would be helpful, and using that to, when I went to Portland or Philadelphia, there's little commercials at night about mural districts. They really blow their own horn there, and you'll find that people are going to Philly and Portland. There's so many artistic conferences in Portland because it's known as an art town.
Yes.
And so they use some really top drawer ad companies, and they have like an advertising campaign for the city of Portland because they know that tourists are in hotels watching that commercial. I'd like to see something like that. It might be a way to bring some of that energy and letting people know, El Pueblo is there, or Lamert Park has a jazz history, or the East Side or Silver Lake or Echo Park. So I'd like to see, and I have these conversations sometimes with the folks at Sundance. The problem is getting airtime to air those. But once we make them, we'll find a place to show them.
There's a teacher of music in Lincoln Heights, trained in Venezuela. He has 50 students. They had a little concert. In 6 weeks, he transformed their lives.
Beautiful.
But how do we take that 50 to 500 to 5,000 to 50,000 throughout the city? I mean, he's trained just like the head of our opera, right? But he's not making 1.5. And he's somewhere below that. He should be up in that direction. But how do we get scale in this city when there's that type of talent, that type of training? How do we get scale in the city?
I think we can forge partnerships with some of the major universities, the best music schools we have in the United States, right here. UCLA is chomping at the bit to get involved in partnerships like this. They would happily provide teachers, students, graduate students who are supervised by faculty to go out into the community and teach young people in various parts of the community. USC School of Music and Colburn likely would also want to do that, and that's to me maybe the best thing that you can do along these lines, teaching young people, then maybe sort of sending them out after they've gotten a bit of training to other established organizations. There's a youth orchestra that started that works in collaboration with the LA Phil, YOLA. There's the Harmony Project. These are well-established organizations, but children who are trained in introductory music throughout the city could be fed into those programs very nicely, and you could have, instead of 50 kids at Lincoln Heights, is it?
Yes.
You could have them. You could have one group in every councilmanic district.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be a problem.
Let me ask you about financing. So both of you have made smaller films, but significant. Hollywood is very well organized. I've met with the studios, I've met with the unions. They're going to ask us to work with them to make sure that they get support from us in terms of tax policy, both from the city, and work with us at the state level to get support from them. And they want to expand that, right? So they want more tax breaks for even the bigger blockbusters. But are we doing enough for small filmmakers? And would there be a linkage between the tax breaks we give to Hollywood and their support for the arts in the city at the entry level, when we're training people in new theater, new filmmakers, documentary filmmakers? Should there be some linkage? Because it's the tax breaks are significant.
I really, don't have a good answer for that because I don't understand sort of the tax structure and who is taxed how. But I do know from my own experience that that films can be, if they're not-for-profit films, they can have a fiscal sponsor, which is a nonprofit organization that allows, that brings in funds that aren't taxed. But that isn't. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Are you talking about the profits, which wouldn't be taxed?
Well, we give Hollywood tax breaks, right? We want to keep work here in Los Angeles.
And the tax breaks come in terms of the profits are taxed at a lower level. Is that what you're saying?
They get tax credits for their for production, right?
So then whatever profits they
make, they keep.
Are offset
Right.
by the tax credits.
Right, and so our policy is, well, they're going to make a lot of money, but that money means there's a lot of people at work. And so we want to promote that. That's our tax policy. So we're going to spend money through tax breaks and tax credits so that they can make movies and they'll make profits. The question is, at the back end, when they're successful, should there be some linkage between the tremendous profits they make on a blockbuster, for example, and a requirement that they reinvest that at the local level, at a smaller level, for people who are new filmmakers, new theater, small community theater, because that's where, for so many people, that's where they get their start.
It's $1 million question in a way, Gil, and I really appreciate it because the question itself points to a kind of innovation that doesn't exist currently, but quite possibly it could. I know that at Culver City, Sony Studios has been known to either help or work with Center Theater Group's Douglas Theater, but it's right in that neighborhood.
Yes.
It's a neighborhood thing almost, and we could find ways to do that. It might work. Not necessarily the Westlake Theater, but a Westlake Theater. We should go get a big patron, a studio to
Yes.
whoever ends up with that place. This is an example. It might not be a bad idea to go over to take a meeting with a studio and say, hey, just down the street from Paramount, just down the street from one of the urban studios,
Down from Melrose.
there's 20,000 square foot of space. And we've got students to teach and kids that want to learn and kids that know how to paint and that sort of thing. So it's a mechanism that doesn't currently exist, but my gosh, it's innovative, and there's no harm in asking, and it could just be that someone's been waiting to be asked about something like that. Could be a Cal Arts too. It could be like a university or academic sort of partnership, but there seems to be a sexy idea in a studio helping, the kid, the little brother and sister that's in town.
Mr. Cedillo, I think you bring up such great points in terms of how can we finally marry the incredible resources that are in the city of Los Angeles through the entertainment industry, through the profit centers we have through the institutions. How can we finally marry the relationship so that we can support our cultural arts in the city of Los Angeles? And those are exactly the conversations that I want to advance very aggressively moving forward. And I was able to discuss this with these two individuals, and that's really something that I think we can do.
Yeah.
The development community, with their economy recovering and all this development coming forward, I think there's so much opportunity to finally have Los Angeles become one of the cultural arts capitals of the world, which would be befitting of a world-class city. So I love where this conversation is going, and I eagerly look forward to many more of them. And so, having said that, Mr. Price?
Yeah, too, just want to thank you for your commitment, for your involvement. Certainly, you bring a continued breath of fresh air in a situation that gets kind of tight sometimes. But this whole idea of cultural tourism is a conversation we're going to be having also with the convention center, because again, they got to be a role. They got to play a role, a more progressive role, I think. And how do we, share the riches that the area has to the world? How do we showcase it? How do we spread it around? And so we're going to be looking to your guidance, your enthusiasm, your energy, your ideas to help us make that happen.
Awesome.
Dr. Edelman, Mr. Montoya, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I think we're on our way to the full council.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For the whole, do we do a motion?
No, we're good. I think we're
good.
Yeah.
Basically, just say, the committee's sentiment to approve, or
All right.
so just publicly put that on the record. That way, everybody else.
So approved. So approved. And next, I'd like to bring up our lone library commission appointee, Ms. Biknak Chow, whom I've had the pleasure of knowing for some time, a Council District 13 resident, and I welcome you, Biknak, to the table. Thank you. My colleagues, any questions or suggestions to Biknak?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love our library system. I believe that the public library is the base for a free and democratic and educated society. On a personal level, my parents are from Vietnam. They are refugees from the war, and I'm the firstborn here. I'm from Silver Lake, and I live there now. And I grew up going to libraries as my safe place, and the characters in books were my best friends. I wanted to hang out with Nancy Drew and Laura Ingalls Wilder. I wanted Atticus Finch to be my uncle. I have a deep love for literature, and even today I actually have a little free library in my apartment building where I share books with my neighbors. I'm really excited about the e-media services and the breadth and depth of the services of the LA Public Library. I actually use the library almost every day. I read from my Kindle from the e-media services, and I actually read a lot of books that I borrow from the library as well. I look forward to working with the commission colleagues and figuring out how we can better promote and improve our e-media services, as I work in digital marketing and would like to offer my expertise in that realm.
Wonderful. I like how you put your money where your mouth is, and you have a library at your building that you installed yourself,
Yeah.
and I saw it.
Yeah.
And so I'm very impressed with that, and the fact that you grew up in the library system, as did I. After school, that's where I spent all my hours growing up. So I thank you, for stepping up to serve in a greater capacity. Colleagues?
No, I too kind of grew up in the library, Mount Vernon Square over off Normandy. And I remember walking there. I just learned, we celebrated 100 years anniversary of the library. I understand it was the first library I was excited to learn in the LA system. So we know that the unique role that libraries play in our community, a safe haven, a window on the world, a safe place to study, a place to play and have fun. And so we just look forward to your continued support and guidance and leadership, and making sure these are centers of learning and opportunity, not only for young people, but for older folks as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to claim Robert Louis Stevenson, where my parents would drop me off, and a librarian would wait for me with a stack of books, and I'd sit in the corner, and the world would open up to me. So what are the challenges that confront us with all the ever-changing dynamics for the library system?
I think that, there's outreach where people don't know that there's a lot of online services that they can use. As, kids grow up and they don't know that they should visit the library to, I like to think of the library not just as a place with books, but as a community center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there should be more outreach to let people know that they can use a lot of the different services, from citizenship services to kids watching movies and reading aloud. I've had a little sister in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program in the last year, and her biggest problem in school is that she really doesn't know how to read. So I took her to the library often, to Jefferson and also to Washington Irving, to teach her. I taught her phonics and at the library. And it's something that I wanted to push her parents to understand, that that's a place for them to take all three of their kids, that they can hang out there, that they can feel safe there. And so I want to continue that kind of outreach. And I think there are other challenges too with funding and trying to figure out how we can get more books into the libraries and more materials, and also more licensed material into the e-media services.
How do we maximize the e-books and everything with the internet and with the public? How do we make sure that they're able to access the library electronically?
I think that there needs to be a little bit more outreach online to people. I think a lot of people don't know that you can also, even if you don't visit the library physically, that you can sign up for a card online and you can start borrowing immediately. I'd love to see some sort of outreach to LAUSD where now that kids are all getting iPads, I'd like people to understand that, you can borrow into the Kindle app on the iPad. It's not just that the Kindle is an e-reader, that there's also apps that sync to your phone, to the iPad, to your computer, where you can borrow from the library system.
So how do we do that? Is this a partnership we need to take to LAUSD?
I think there needs to be some outreach to the LAUSD system to talk about how we can implement that to teach kids in classrooms that here's how you can check out a book online and it returns automatically, which is great because then you don't have to worry about overages as well, and I think that would be helpful for kids.
Wonderful. And just a few quick things. With respect to, historically, there have been disagreements between the City Council and the Library Commission on a few things. And this is a new City Council. The Commission's moving forward. What do you see as an opportunity, perhaps, to bridge any differences of opinion on how to move the library system forward? And also with respect to Measure L, which has provided additional resources and prioritizing the goals that you see for our library system.
I don't know of the previous disagreements, but I look forward to working with the other members of the committee to figure out how we can work better with the administration and with the City Council. In regard to Measure L, I look forward to libraries being open on Sundays again. That's one of my favorite days to go to the library personally, and I'd love to have more funding for that and also for just our book collections.
Wonderful. Colleagues?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you so much, Big Nook. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up our disability commissioners today, and I just want to let folks know that Ms. Betty Wilson is a reappointment and she is out sick today, so Ms. Wilson won't be joining us, but we do have Mr. Michael Griggs and we also have Mr. Jorge Acevedo. So please up to the microphones. Thank you, gentlemen. And we would love to hear from you, and we'll start with Mr. Acevedo.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me and reappointing me. It's a very honor. First of all, I want to say a little bit about myself. Over the years, I was never disabled, which basically gives me an honor to be in a wheelchair and show everybody that how people in wheelchairs can do things differently. And by being in this commission, which is building and safety, it gives me an honor to help out other people. And at the same time, we were talking about earlier about El Pueblo. I am very honored to say that I have made El Pueblo de Los Angeles accessible to everybody in wheelchairs. Now we have ramps there in the pueblo so people can experience like us growing up as a child. I used to remember running up the steps to buying a candy. Now people in wheelchairs can actually roll around, go up there, buy a candy and stuff. So it gives me an honor to be on this commission in itself. And a little bit about me, I work also with the city of Glendale. I work at the police department, which is their internal affairs department and professional standards bureau. We oversee a lot of police officers, and I have impacted many officers into going on beyond and doing their best and stuff, and I encourage them to keep doing the best as we can and stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Acevedo, and thank you so much for your advocacy, which resulted in real change at El Pueblo. That's remarkable. Thank you for that. Mr. Griggs?
Yes, sir. Thank you for this unbelievable honor. I am so honored to be appointed to the Disability Commission because the word disability has been associated with a negative connotation. What I want to see this city do is make the word disability cool. You know, come up with ad campaigns that make it cool. Come up with come up with plays where you know there are disabled young people getting the captain of the cheerleader, or you know I think that it's our job as people to perpetuate diversity, and diversity is a great thing, but the great thing about the disabled population is it encompasses all diversities, all races, all religions, and we have made many strides with ADA, and there is still a lot of work to do with that. But I think all the roads and all the civic improvements don't mean anything if we can't change the way that society views people in wheelchairs, because I feel that if we as a city change our collective mindset, the whole about disabilities, the whole world will start to view disabilities as not people that can, people that can, and I am honored to champion that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griggs. Very well put. Thank you so much. Colleagues, Mr. Price?
Yeah, I just want to thank both of you gentlemen for stepping up and providing us with your insight, with your leadership. There's a lot more we need to be doing for members of our community, and so your involvement at the decision-making level and providing advice and counsel will be greatly appreciated, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank both of you. Please send my regards to my former co-worker, Betty Wilson. Tell her I miss her, and thank you both for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we're on our way with this one too.
Yes.
Yes? So moved? And we move forward. Thank you, gentlemen. Look forward to serving with you.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to call up from the Zoo Commission appointment, Ms. Yasmin Johnson, and from the Board of Recreation and Parks, Ms. Sylvia Pastores. And
to follow.
It sure is. All right, with that, Ms. Johnson, please.
My name is Yasmin Delaware Johnson. I'm a native Angelino. As I've been listening to everybody today, first of all, I also want to say it's a tremendous honor to be here. I'm very humbled to be in this group of appointees because it's clearly an extraordinary group of people, and I think it's really interesting to hear as each person speaks. Everyone speaks about how each of these things affected their childhood, whether we're talking about the libraries or the Pueblo or the zoo, cultural affairs, and I'm sure as we continue to speak, that will continue to be sort of the basis of where we all come from. So with that in mind, I think I could tell you a lot of different things that I've done or I do, but I think my most important qualification is that I'm the mother of 4 children, ranging in age from 10 and a half months to 17 years. So besides my own childhood at the zoo, I spend and have spent many, many, many years at the zoo and continue to. I think it's an incredibly important part of our city. I think it has a very direct impact on our children. And as we talk about places being a community center, I certainly know that the zoo is a huge asset to parents. I also write a parenting blog for Los Angeles Magazine, so I'm very in touch with our parents here in Los Angeles.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Pastores.
Yes, good morning. I'm an urban planner that recently retired from the Southern California Association of Governments. And throughout my 20 years at SCAG, I was very involved with open space. I was manager of environmental planning at one time, and then I retired as director of strategy, policy, and public affairs. And on my personal life, I have been involved with the parks through my children because they played soccer, they played basketball at the parks. And then through volunteer work that I used to do. I used to work with a community center in West Los Angeles, and we took the children to the park. And for many children, they came from environments where they lived in apartments. They really had no access to open space except the parks. So it was a very important influence in my interest in parks to see that for many, many children, their only ability to move, to walk, to exercise is at the parks outside from school. So now that I have the opportunity to devote more time to service, I have served in the past on some other commissions, but this one is particularly of interest to me, and I really feel very honored that I'm being considered for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And again, colleagues, I had the great pleasure of sitting down with Ms. Pastores and Ms. Johnson previous to this, and we had great conversations about their views on things. So I would like to turn it over to you.
I spoke to this young man this morning. He said, Ms. Pastores, if you wanted to say anything nice about Nick Pastores, to feel free to. It's some
Thank you. No, I'm here for Sylvia Patsaoras, not for Nick.
There you go.
Thank both of you for your service. We've got a lot of challenges. Why don't you tell us what are some of the challenges in terms of, are you getting adequate resources? I'm always concerned about in changed demographics, that we have adequate resources, that we're accommodating the public, that we have access, that particularly the strategies for us to make the parks more utilized in a balanced way is that we have to have more women, we have to have cleaner restrooms, and we have to have a greater sense of accessibility so that children and women feel safe. That if we don't do those things, that then we're surrendering our parks. So what do you think we're doing enough, and what are some of the things that we should be doing to help in that area?
I don't really know that much about how the budget is being used yet because I have not gotten into the meetings. But I do know that I went recently to one meeting just as an observer of the commission. And I was very impressed with the funding that's available. And to me, the concern was more not that is there enough funding, but how is the funding being utilized? When I was in the graduate school at UCLA, we did a study of Elysian Park, and I did a survey of the users to see how we could accommodate the users better. And I was just amazed at how they thought it was perfect. and they were surprised that we were even questioning improving it. And so to me, I think my goal is to try to engage the community more to really get their input. Because I think that, like I said, for many people in the inner city, the parks are their only access to open space. And so they are just thrilled to be able to have that access, but that doesn't mean that we are really providing the best services that we can. And so that's what I would really try to accomplish, to see what else can we do that we haven't looked at. And then to look at what has been tried in the past and lessons learned as to what problems we're encountering, what did we learn from those problems, and how can we address the issues that come up while I'm a commissioner.
Very good.
With regard to the zoo, again, similarly, I don't know the specifics of how money is being allocated and how it's being used yet, because I'm not on the commission yet. One thing, just as a parent, that I've observed amongst other parents in Los Angeles is when our children are very young, everybody goes to the zoo regularly. My friends, and like I said, I don't know if you were in here at the time, but I have kids ranging in age from 10 and a half months to 17 years. So my littlest are 10 and a half months old and 3.5 years old. And we go to the zoo weekly, sometimes multiple times per week. We have a zoo membership. What I've noticed with friends is that as their children get a little bit older, preschool and a little bit older, oftentimes they stop going as regularly, which means they stop their membership. And I would be very curious to explore how do we keep bringing those families and those kids as they get older to the zoo, because there's certainly other opportunities. When I met with Councilmember O'Farrell, I said my husband and I just came from a trip to Costa Rica. It was our 4th trip with our children, and one of the reasons why we love going to Costa Rica is that it doesn't matter how old our kids are. Everybody loves seeing monkeys in the trees and sloths in the trees. Our zoo has all of that. So in our family, our eldest is in her senior year of high school, and she wants to become a vet. And she's an equestrian and spends a lot of time at the equestrian center. So I would really like to explore that. I know that there's incredible classes offered at the zoo. If I wasn't here today, I was going to be at Go Go Gorillas with my 3.5-year-old, which is taking place right now at the zoo. And a lot of my mom friends don't necessarily know about those classes, and they're looking for things to do with their kids. I think social media is a great way to reach those moms. As I mentioned, I write a parenting blog for Los Angeles Magazine. Most of my mom friends are on Instagram all the time and sharing with their friends. It's their private accounts, but they're sharing with each other. Here I am at the farmer's market. Here I am wherever with their kids. And if I was at Go Go Gorillas with my son and I Instagram that, and if there were certain hashtags that moms could share with other moms, it would raise awareness, and it's free, a free form of marketing about what is already being offered at the zoo. So those are a couple of things that I think about as a parent, and I know other parents talk about.
And I just want to say, in my 11 years of professional experience working either for an elected official or now as an elected official, in the case of rec and parks, maintenance has never been fully funded. I don't know what it's like to have a city that adequately funds our recreation and parks maintenance. So there's been discussion, sometimes very controversial discussion, about partnership opportunities. But anyone will tell you, even with the, knock wood, recovering economy, and perhaps we'll have a pretty decent budget next year and the years to come, I know we're all going to fight for that on this city council, there still may need to be additional resources identified in partnership with adequately funding, certainly maintenance and possibly even programming, both in recreation and parks facilities and at the zoo. And in the case of the zoo, there are privatization talks. And how are we going to move forward as a world-class zoo? How are we going to harness the resources necessary to make it a great experience for Angelinos everywhere? So I think as we move forward, I'm commenting as much as asking for your thoughts, if you wish, to just be thinking in terms of how we move forward, because we have incredible challenges ahead, both just as a city with our budget and being able to afford the services that our constituents deserve, and then as commissioners, looking for creative ways, working with your colleagues on the commission, and identifying those partnerships and then recommending them to us. So I think there's a lot of work for us to do mutually together and in collaboration. So if you have any thoughts, I welcome them now or not, but I just wanted to say that for me in closing, I just want to put that out there, that will be something that will be very, very topical and probably an indefinite conversation as we move forward.
Yes, I just want to add that one of the top bullets that I have for things to do when I get on the commission is to look at the public-private aspect to see what has been tried and where do we move from there.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you.
I would be very curious to learn more about the pros and cons of a public-private partnership at the zoo. I've read and know some of the discussions that have taken place before, and from what I have read, I see some strong arguments on both sides. So I would be very curious to learn more about it. I think ultimately we want the well-being of the animals at the zoo to be highest or very high on our list of what we care about, because it all ripples out from the animals. And of course, the employees want to be protected as those decisions are made, and so I'd be very curious to learn more about that.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I think you both have so much to offer, and I'm personally so pleased with your appointments and your willingness to serve. Your passion clearly comes through, and I think that each commission will be in great shape with your addition to it. So I thank you for that. And I think we're on our way on this one too.
Thank you.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you so much. And with that, does that complete our committee today?
That's all items.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Richard.
Thank you.